Hi everybody, it's Randy Baker. I just want to go through 10 location shooting tips for you for week 2 when you go out and shoot your iconic landmark shot. So shooting outside creates its own set of problems. Number one, as we say over and over again in this class, cinematography is all about light. And I say that if you take away nothing else from this class but one thing, it should be that bad lighting will give you bad looking shots. Mediocre lighting is going to give you mediocre looking shot. Good lighting is going to give you good looking shots, and great lighting is going to give you great shots. So the problem becomes most of you are going to look at mediocre and bad lighting and not be thinking about your lighting, especially outside. And you're going to try to shoot under mediocre and bad light, thinking that you can make it look good in post. You can't. Bad light is bad light. Mediocre light is mediocre light. Cinematography is all about light, period. So always try to shoot under the best light possible. You got to learn how to make the light work for you. Like this shot, if you're shooting most people go, oh, I'd love to shoot sunsets. Okay, here's a great sunset. But if you shoot the sunset, if I just had the sun right here in the middle of this, with just the sun, everything would just be a pure silhouette. Here, at least I got a little bit of detail because I hid the sun behind the trees. So you just have to know about dynamic range here, for example, that the camera has a very limited dynamic range, and you got to learn how to make the light work for you. Now, you could have flipped on the other side of this bridge and shot the bridge with the sun going down and still got the same kind of light, but you'd have had this nice golden light lighting up the bridge to see all that, and it would eventually go dark. So you got to really start looking at light differently. That's the number one thing. We talk about the properties of light all the time. It's the quality of light, hard versus soft. That's really easy to understand. The larger the light source, the softer the light. The smaller the light source, the harder the light. And again, the direction of the light, high, low, or natural, which is 25 to 65 degrees inside and out. And the numbers of lights, 1 light, 2 light, 3 light, 4 light. Outside, mostly you're shooting as the sun is your key light, but, things bouncing off the ground or off buildings and stuff, that's a fill light, that's a second light source. And then for you, shooting outside, not so much on the iconic landmark shot, but like on week 3 in the shutter speed shots, you will have also a reflector, so that will be a 3 light source. Outside. Inside, you can have as many lights as you like. And then, of course, there's different lighting styles that you need to know, and some conventions and guidelines and rules down the road, like 3-point lighting, why we use 3-point lighting, high key versus low key lighting, silhouettes like we showed you up above, golden and blue hours, short and broad, split loop, Rembrandt, and Paramount. Those are all having to deal with shooting people. Short and broad depends on what side of the face the key lights on, and then the 4 main lighting styles for portraits are split, loop, Rembrandt, and Paramount that you'll learn here down the road. The time of day, of course, the time of day is really important. So, about 45 minutes before the sunrise till sunrise, you have what's called astro. What the heck is it called? Way down here, and then you have an astro sunrise, nautical sunrise, and then civil sunrise, and then sunrise. Okay, and so this is all blue hour down in here, mostly from this area in here, and that's when the sky is blue like this. You have this shadowless light. The sun is already set. The sun's still up here, but once the sun gets below the horizon, you have this blue shadowless light of the sun below the horizon, still bouncing up into the lower atmosphere and bouncing this shadowless natural blue light down. So from sunrise, as soon as the sun rises, to about 6 degrees above, that's called golden hour. That lasts for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then anything above that, really for me, it's more, at 6 degrees, is more like about 25 degrees, 20 to 25 degrees. And that's what you're going to see. So most of the day, you're going to see natural light between about 20 and about 65 degrees. And then above 65 degrees is midday, and that's hard, harsh light that we don't normally shoot. And then the afternoon, 65 to about 20 degrees. And then you get back into golden hour and blue hour again. So the time of day is really important, and you got to kind of know what what the color temperature is during the different times of day. And most of the time, if it's a blue sky day, it's 5,600 degrees Kelvin. Okay, you got to know those. So just commit to memory those, 5 Kelvin degree numbers: 32, 56, 65, 75, and 85, and the color temperatures in the light they represent. This is blue hour. You can see how gorgeous that looks. This is golden hour. Now, the thing about both of these is that how you white balance. You don't set your white balance for on a white card, because if you do, what you're doing when you're setting that white balance on that white card is you're nulling out all the color, all the tint in the color. And that's not what you want to do when you're shooting under blue hour or golden hour. You want that golden light or the blue light. So the way you do that is you set your manual white balance for 5,600 to 6,000 degrees Kelvin, which is daylight. And then you let it go warmer blue. Okay, it's that simple. Okay, and you can do A and B if you want, just to see the effect of what it looks like when you null out that white. Remember, the sun has to be hitting the white card for you to do that. Now, the reason that a lot of people like to shoot at blue hour and golden hour is because of this. It's a warmer, softer light, and the reason it's warmer or softer is because when you've got the sun directly overhead during the middle of the day, it's going through this much atmosphere to reach you. Okay, that's it, that much atmosphere. But as the sun comes down along the side of the earth and starts to go down below the horizon, now it's going through this much atmosphere, up to 6 times more atmosphere to reach you. And as it's going through that atmosphere, which is, the sun is 200 million miles away, the lower atmosphere is 20 to 200 miles away, much, much closer. Okay. And so as it's going through that 6 times more atmosphere to reach to you, that begins to act like a giant silk. Okay. So that means you got a larger, softer light source. The sun, 200 million miles away, comes across up here at midday as a small, hard light source. But down here, when you're lighting up the lower atmosphere and that acts as a big, giant silk, now you got a much larger light. And as it's going through that 6 times more atmosphere, which is made up of sleet, sand, snow, hail, rain, pollution, volcanic ash, you name it. Okay, it's filtering out the shorter blue light rays and letting the longer red light rays through. And so that's why you get a softer, warmer look when you shoot at golden hour, which is what everybody likes. Skies, clouds, and locations. Blue sky daylight, again, this is the numbers you need to know. You need to commit these to memory, and then you need to play this guessing game every time you go outside and white balance and look at what it looks like. Okay, so you need to be able to look at these and tell me what the white balance is within 500 degrees of each of these, lighting situations. Easy to do once you know this. Blue sky daylight, the sky is, above 25 degrees. It's 5,600 degrees Kelvin. Partly cloudy, where you got a little bit of wispy clouds in front of the sun. 6,500, overcast cloudy, like this, where you'd still have shadows in the ground. About 7,500, and deep shade of tree, or, completely overcast, like under these clouds and stuff. 7,500 or 8,500 degrees Kelvin. Now, remember, there's that 500 degree subjective range. So 5,000 to 6,000, 6,000 to 7,000, 7,000 to 8,000, 8,000 to 9,000. Again, you just have to commit those to memory and play that game to get really good at this. Dynamic range will kick your butt, like we talked about. You can see the windows are completely blown out here. See how if I was shooting the sun, she would be a silhouette, because I'm letting the sun light her up. I got this nice warm light here. So I brought the dynamic range back within a range the camera can handle. Here, I had to blow the windows out or they would be too dark. Okay, so you have the choice of doing that, but anytime you blow the windows out, then that becomes non-broadcast compliant and can't sell it for stock footage. So you just need to always be thinking about dynamic range. As we say, it's one of the 2 bullies on the playground that will kick your butt and take your lunch money if you don't pay attention to it. It happens all the time. Number one issue I see with people not lighting correctly is they, put the camera into a higher dynamic range that it can handle. You can't do that, okay? So what you need to know is that the human eye has about 20 to 24 stops. It can see 20 to 24 stops. And that's because, that is, stops. We look at that in terms of stops. Let me get rid of some of this stuff here. View, slide only. There we go. And why is this all still up? Document. See if I can get rid of this. View, inspector document. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you and I can see 20 to 24 stops. So let's say 21 for the math. High-end digital cinema cameras, 16 to 18 stops. Yours can see 15. Log or RAW, 14 to 16 stops. Again, yours can see 15, and that's Cinetone or S-Log 3. Most of the DSLR cameras can only see 7 to 10 stops. Yours is a hybrid gamma that fits somewhere in between these two standard gammas and log gamma, and that's 10.5 stops. So in S-Cinetone, you can see 10.5 stops, which is still 10 stops difference. Now that's not 10 times 2, that's 2 times 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 2. It's a significant difference of what your eye can see. Your eye would be able to see all the detail outside of this, and these guys would be exposed properly. The camera cannot. It just can't. So start learning how to look at an image and begin to tell what the contrast range is of the location or of the shot before you shoot it. Now remember, we gave you that general rule of thumb for dynamic range. Try to have anything brighter than your focal point underneath, in front of, or behind your focal point. Really important that you kind of understand how to do that. Let me see here. I want to view the navigator. Yeah, here we go. Number 3. Number 4, shooting under bright daylight. Okay, so again, this is where dynamic range comes in. Sun backlight only, sun backlight and reflector. So if you're shooting somebody, usually what they say is to try to make the sun your backlight, because if you have the sun, a bright sun hitting the person in the face, they're going to be squinting, right? It's going to look horrible, and they're going to feel bad because they're bright sun in the face. Just go outside and stand and try to look at the sun, and you'll see. So you usually want to have the sun at back, is what you're seeing here, strong backlight, but without something to fill in as a key light here, and it's not a fill light, it's a key light here in the front. Then it becomes too dark. So you gotta, again, that's where dynamic range comes in. Make sure you understand how to use that 5:1 reflector. If you do have the sun out in front of them, then take the skin off the reflector and use that one-stop diffusion panel on the inside of that, and have the sun go through that diffusion panel to hit the person, so it's not bright light. You don't want to put bright light in the talent size. Just remember that. Shooting landscapes. The secret to a great landscape is lighting. Again, it's the number one thing that will make or break your image. You want the sun behind the camera, usually about 15 degrees off either side of the camera, so that it's lighting up what you're shooting. Certain things like this would work well with side light, where you see the little detail. Side light shows you all the little detail in things. That's what it is. So you got to do the due diligence. You got to know where the light's going to be. The secret to shooting outside is knowing where the light's going to be in relationship to where you're putting the camera and what you're shooting at any given time when you're out there. So you got to learn how to control that light. Make it work for you. If you're shooting under cloudy skies, remember, you have gain and you have the high base sensitivity, but those things add noise and, change the dynamic range of the camera. So you got to keep those into account. So always try to not shoot those, those are always last resort things. Just remember, you can still shoot under bad weather. There are lots of tricks. Make the weather the story, and then, you got to have the right location, but if the weather is the story, like this is San Francisco, which is known for being foggy, then, that kind of works. Again, if you're shooting outside, you need to know where the sun is. So even if it's cloudy, some of the sun is still coming through the clouds in a certain direction. And so you still got to make that work for you. You don't want the sun coming through the cloud in front of you, because that's going to make the clouds much brighter. So always have it behind you, and then try to have a strong foreground element. When you're shooting, landscapes, it's a foreground, midground, background. The foreground element is known as the handshake or the introduction of the shot. 15% of the time on landscape shots, the foreground is the focal point. 85% of the time, it's the midground that's the focal point. Again, try to make the story the weather, the weather the story on this, and make sure you're protecting both you and your gear. The camera is not waterproof or water resistant. You got to know that, and you need to know the difference between waterproof and water resistance. Just get yourself a water resistant raincoat, and then get yourself a waterproof raincoat and go stand in the rain. You'll very quickly find out the difference between those two. You got to do a location scout. If you're outside shooting, you always have to do a location scout. Always have to do a location scout. Now, you can do it in person, which is very time consuming, or we're going to teach you how to do a virtual location scout using Google Earth. So you got to use Google Earth Pro. You can't use Google Earth, and this is actually, you can turn this in and you get extra credit in the assignment for doing this, and we highly suggest that you do this. And you start out, and we'll walk you through this. So this is how you do it. So first thing, I'm going to go to the internet here. I'm going to call up the internet, if I can find where my internet is. Here we go. I'm going to jump on the internet. Let me go here and go File, New Tab, and I'm going to pull this tab down. Now, I'm going to look for, because I know this place, okay, it's the same thing as you live. I grew up in a little town called Frankfort, Indiana. Frankfort, Indiana. I haven't been back there in probably 35 years. Indiana. Okay, very small town, 12,000 people, and I'm going to type in landmarks because that's what you're shooting. And then I'm going to look at images. Okay, there's Old Stony. That's my old junior high. That's not Frankfort at all. Historic downtown Frankfort. Oh, that's a sign. That's a new sign I haven't seen. There's the old, roundhouses for the train yards. Frankfort train yard. So Old Stony is a good place. There's the Clinton County Courthouse, which is pretty well known. Historic County Home, which I don't think is there anymore. Here's the courthouse again and the sign. So you can see, it's all historic buildings. There's the courthouse. There's the old manor. Here's Thrasher's department store and, some churches, lots of churches. Now, any of these places will work. Okay. So, but let's go Old Stony. Okay. There's the Frankfort Water Tower. Again, something that would work. And you can see, here's, the downtown with a little gazebo in the foreground. Here's an old Victorian house and there. Here's the, different churches and stuff. So let's say let's do Old Stony. And you can see I've never seen that before, which is kind of interesting. And so here's Old Stony. Okay, so we'd come in here and we'd look at this and say, okay, what's a good looking image of it? Well, this is a very good looking image. One of the first images we come across is actually, this is too flat. We don't want that. That's not lit up enough. That's lit up, but it's cutting things off. So, we go back to this. This is a very nice looking shot of this. And so let's take a look at that. This one I think is a little bit better. So let's say we're going to shoot that from right here in the driveway. There's a little street right there. This is where we're going to do. So we need to figure out, by doing a location scout, a virtual location scout, when we need to be there with the camera right there to shoot this building right there. This is the other side of the building. Okay, this is the other side of the building. This is this side of the building. So there are really two fronts to this building. So that's it. So this is the shot we would use as our emulated shot. We would pick this shot and say, okay, this is the shot. Okay, that's it. That's the Old Stony there. And look how nice that looks. It looks like it had some architectural stuff done to the grass and stuff. So then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Google Earth Pro. Now, again, this has to be Google Earth Pro. You can't use that. And we're going to type in Old Stony, Frankfort, Indiana, and it's going to click on that. And it's going to take us right down there. Now we want to see 3D buildings, and we want, all this stuff turned on over here. So this is it. Here's Old Stony. And so I'm going to go down here, keep going. I can keep clicking on this. If you haven't used Google Earth, this is why we ask you to open this up and start looking at it here. So here's Old Stony, and anything blue like this, there's a picture there. Here's a picture, horrible picture of that. So if you look at this, that's, the front of the building. And it looks like when they shot this, they shot it from, well, let's go down here and take a look and see where they shot it from. I think they shot it from over here. So let's take a look. Okay, here we go. And let's click on this just to see if we can see it different. No, it's not showing us. So let's get out of Street View and make sure we have 3D buildings clicked. And then let's click up on this so we can see it. And now let's see if anytime you drag this guy over, anything with a blue line is where you can actually see images of it. So let's drag this down here and look at it. So that's it. And so let's look at the picture again. That's not the picture. There's the picture. So it was from the opposite side. Okay. So it was from the other side that we're on. So that's why you pick the picture first. So you go back to Google Earth, okay, and you could exit Street View, and then you would just go over here and put the camera down here. So I'm going to put it right out here. And so now if we come around and we look at Old Stony, you can see kind of where it was shot at. It was shot probably not there, but over here. So let's go down the street a little bit. Let's just go right down the street right here, and let's put ourselves right here on the edge of the street. Okay, so this is where it was shot at, from right here. Now you see it looks familiar, right? Okay, so that's it. And I can come in a little bit closer maybe. Oh, took me a little out of the way. And so let me exit Street View now. I'm going to exit the Street View, and I'm going to still come down. I'm going to come, oops, nope. I'm going to come down closer, and then I'm going to rotate this around so that I can see it about right there. I think that's where it was, I think. And let me see. It keeps on clicking 3D buildings here. And I'm up here at the top. I should see this in a little bit more three-dimensional. I guess it's not a lot of three-dimensionality here. And then I come up here and I click this. Okay, it's 252 right now. So as I there in Frankfort, Indiana, as I go by, you can see it get darker. Okay, so here's the school, and this is not really showing me very much here. Oh, some of the newer satellite images will show you actually the shadows and stuff on here. So let me go back down to Street View. Okay, and I'm going to rotate this around. You can rotate around and look at it. Okay, it's not letting me see anything here. It's not changing it at all. Exit ground level. Okay, that's it. So here's what you can do. So I know that's where I'm going to shoot from. My camera's going to be right there, shooting back across here. That's where I know. Okay, so now I'm going to tilt up on this. I'm going to tilt up, and I'm due south, and I'm looking north here. Okay, so I know the sun's going to come up on the east over here. So if I go to the west and go over here, and then I go up here and I go back to the early morning, there's my sunrise. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Where's Old Stony at? Right there. So there is the building. Old Stony is way over here. There's the building right there, and we're gonna be out here shooting. Okay, we're gonna be, I think we were right here. On either side. I think on the other side. Let's go back to this for a second, and let me bring this up so we can see the weather on this, and that's it. And let me come down here and see where we were at. Yeah, I think we were right there. Let's come around and see if that's where we wanted to be. Nope. I think we wanted to be on the opposite sides of that. So let's go over there. We're just trying to figure out where we need to be here. So maybe over here. So let's come over here and put it down and take a look at it. Nope. And so we're completely on the opposite side there. We need to spin this around and come over here. Okay, here we go. So now if we put this down here and spin around, we're going to see this. And this is where we're going to shoot it from. Okay, so now let's exit Street View. Okay, so again, if I tilt up now, tilt up, there's Old Stony. Going closer, and I'm tilting up, tilt up, tilt up, tilt up. Okay, bring this out. There's Old Stony. We're going to be right there. Okay, so now if I go down here and look at the sunrise, okay, I'm not seeing it, so I have to come over here a little bit more. Oh, that just flipped me completely around. See if I can see Old Stony in here, the old spirit shop. Let me click on it. You can always just click on that and it'll take you right back to where you were. There you go. And you can see the building. So we wanted to be right here. No, right here on this side over here on East Clinton. Okay, so if I tilt up, there's East Clinton. I can come in a little bit closer. Right there. So we're going to be right there, and I'm just going to come up until I can see the sky. Okay, there we go. There's Old Stony. So now I'm going to come back over and look at it from the I want the sun probably on the west. So there's Old Stony right there. I'm going to be right there. So I want the sun over here. Okay, so let's go and see if the sun comes over there. too much. That's early in the morning. Here we go. There we go. So right about there. So if I flip this around just a little bit more and bring this over, and flip this around a little bit more so I can see it. There's my sun. Okay, come on, sun, you can do it. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's where I want to be, right there. There's the sun. So that's a little bit too low. So probably about 5:59, 6 o'clock to about 5 o'clock. So about 5 to 6 o'clock, even probably, 5 o'clock to about 6 o'clock, right there. That's when I want to shoot there. I know I need to be there, right there at that point to shoot that shot that I want to shoot to emulate this shot with the sun coming in from the left side there. So that tells you when you want to be there. And so I would probably be there about 4 o'clock with the camera set up, and I would keep looking at the light till I got the best light. So that's how you use Google Earth. And so when you do Google Earth here and you have that set up, okay, then you just come down here and flip this around. So let me go back here and flip this around. I'm going to come down and go right on the street, okay, right here on the street. Bam. It's going to stick me down there, and that's the other side. I need to be on the opposite side of that. Exit, and come over here. This is where I need to be, right here. And so now I'm going to come around and take a look at the school right there. Okay, and then I'm going to exit Street View, and then I'm going to tilt up just a little bit. So right about there. Come down. Oop. Still taking me back in Street View. You can do anything. You can show me this. The problem is you won't be able to show me the time. So if you just exit out of that, and if you want to show me both of them, and then do this, then I can see that you know what time of day you need to be there. So like we said, this would be probably between 5 and 6 o'clock. So let's go back to 5, let's say 4:30 here just to be on the safe side. This is what the sun's going to look like there. Okay, oh, too much. And it's a little touchy. You just got to know that, it's a little touchy. And for a lot of things, you will actually see the 3D buildings. This one's not showing me the 3D buildings. But if I type in Indianapolis, Indiana, for example, and I look at Indianapolis, and hit go, search, and it's going to give me some search. It's going to take me down to Indianapolis. And now if I go into Indianapolis, I'm probably going to see some 3D images here of the city as I come in. Keep coming down. Keep coming down. Let's say we're going to shoot at the mall here. And now you see everything is kind of 3D. And so if I bring this and I put it down here on the street, and I look at this and come down, now look at this, totally different. And then if I exit out of this and then just tilt up, I can see the buildings now. So, and then if I take my sun and I go back and forth, now I can see, look at that golden hour right there. You can see exactly when golden hour is. And then you can tell when the front of those buildings are lit up. So you'd want to, if you were shooting that front of this Capitol building over here, it would be around, from about, probably 9 o'clock in the morning till about 11 o'clock, which is when you would shoot that. So that's how you use Google Earth. So you got to learn how to use Google Earth Pro very well on this. Okay, tip number 8. So location scouting, and there's lots of apps out there. Okay, besides Google Earth Pros, you can use Photopeals, or you can use Helios Pro, or this is a free one that will tell you whether or not you have good sunrises or sunset. Photographers Ephemeris, this means like literature and stuff. They're $9, $10, and there's pro versions of these, which are twice as expensive, $20, but they'll do everything. You can see where the sun's going to be. You can see where the moon's going to be. It's pretty amazing, the technology there. So you also need to learn how to use these reflectors. Again, I would highly suggest, and reflectors are good, and I have a ton of reflectors and diffusion panels and stuff that I use, but you might want to look at getting some tools to help you. A C-stand is going to cost you about $100. These are clamps that, cost you about $15. These are from a company called Neewer, Neewer. And they also make little clamps like this, which I wouldn't recommend, or arms that you see. If you look up here at this one, you can see these have arms on them. Okay, these are the arms. I use these clamps. I think these clamps are much better, especially on a C-stand, because you can, put them anywhere. Make sure you get sandbags if you're going to get, anytime you put a reflector or a silk or something on a light stand, it becomes a sail. So if you're outside, you're responsible for that. Um, know what lenses to use. And again, this is a part of the pre-visualization workflow where we walk you through and we want you to learn about the type of shot you're shooting. Not the shot type. A shot type is a medium shot, a wide shot, a close-up, but the type of shot you're shooting. In this case, it's a landscape or a iconic landmark shot is what we're calling it. And so you'd normally want a wider angle lens because you want deep depth of field. Usually, this is a shallow depth of field here. So again, remember that to get a shallow depth of field, f4 to f8, to get a medium depth of field, f8 to f16, and to get a deep depth of field, f16 to f22, with a middle number in there, 5-6 for shallow, 11 for medium, 20 for deep. So always start at those numbers, so if you expose for that, you go up and down. So that's the hard part outside, is making sure you learn how to expose, and that's where ND filters come in. That's why we want you to start learning how to use electronic variable ND once you get out of this class. But first, you got to know how to use NDs first, okay? So there are all kinds of filters. You have a built-in ND filter. You don't. The lens has some micro haze filters built into it as well, but you don't have a polarizer on there. And then, of course, we use gain instead of ISO. Always just make sure that your gain or your ISO is always the base or native ISO, which for us is always going to be 0. Or there's 4 different ones for ISO if you're going to use ISO. Again, once you get outside of this class, I don't care what you use. It's personal preference. Finally, number 10, natural and ambient light. Know what the difference is, okay? Know what natural light is and what ambient light is, okay? Ambient light is the lighting from the sun or clouds and the reflective light from objects within the range of your shot. So, okay, if it's artificial lighting coming, the sun, or natural lighting, not artificial, but real lighting from the sun, or something being bounced off the sun, it's ambient light or natural light. Ambient light is any light that's reflected from that natural light. So any natural light source, direct or reflected, this is lighting from the sun or clouds and the reflective light from objects within the range of your shot. So if you look in here, you can see the shadow. This is called paramount lighting, also known as butterfly lighting. And look at that. So there's a building across the street. This particular photographer I know very well, Lee Jeffries. And he puts his subjects, they're mostly homeless people, up against the wall about a half a block away from a big building. And then he shoots at a specific time of day when the sun is hitting that white building and bouncing light all the way half a block away across the parking lot and hitting the people there. And you can see that. And he also, what you can't see here is there's a reflector right there. There's a round reflector. He's got a little round reflector there bouncing a little bit of light in there just to add a little bit of fill light. So that is all ambient light bouncing and hitting her. The natural light is the light that's hitting the door, the building over there. And the same thing here. This is a really famous, one of the most famous portraits called The Afghan Girl by a guy named Steve McCurry, shot in 1984, made the cover of Nat Geo magazine, and she became really famous. He went back years later and found her. And, but if you look in here, you can look at this. You can see the shadow on her nose? That's loop lighting. Okay, see how it loops around the nose? That's called loop lighting. Okay, see the reflection on this side of her face, and this side is darker here. See the specular highlight in her eyes, how it's coming here. And if you look at this, you can see this is actually sand right there. There's a little building. There's Steve right there. That's Steve squatting down right there. And then there's sky there. And you can actually see, if you go really, really close on this, you can see 2 people standing right there. Okay, so they're watching him shoot. Okay, so, that's all ambient light coming in here lighting this. And he picked this spot the day before, and he told her to come back at a specific time, knowing where the sun would be, so he could shoot that shot. Again, here's my bonus tip for you. It's all about the light. You just got to know that. Learn how to look for great light. That's why people like to shoot under golden hour. It's a warm, soft light. And, if you look at this is a strong backlight. See how this is all lit up back? This is great. And this is very subtle little lighting. Again, warm, soft light. Okay, people tend to generally like warmer, softer light than blue or harder light. It's just one of those things that you're, genetically programmed to kind of feel. Again, that's, light does three things. Gives you enough light to illuminate the shot, creates a tone or a mood based on the color, the density of the shadows, and the direction of the shadows, and it creates three-dimensional depth on this. Now, these are all outside ambient light shots. So, enjoy shooting outside. It's one of my favorite things to do, but you got to learn how to control your light and know where it's at all the time, even though you're outside. Three-point lighting still is the theory that you need to be thinking about, because our whole goal is to use lighting to create three-dimensional depth. If you do the right amount of planning, you'll find that your exterior shooting goes very successfully. If you don't, you will probably run into quite a bit of problems. Light doesn't wait for anybody. It's a fickle mistress. That's it. If you have any questions or need any help on anything, don't hesitate to reach out to me.